Have you ever wondered what's inside an object that seems like an everyday, ordinary object? Have you ever thought about what might be in a stone? What magical worlds you might find in there? Or have you ever thought of what you might find inside of a leaf or a teacup? Like if you could go inside the handle of a teacup, what would be inside the handle? I'm asking these questions because today we're going to write poems where we use our imaginations and really get creative about what you think might be inside common, ordinary objects that we think we're just drinking a teacup, but little do we know there's a whole village of people that live in the handle. Or maybe we pick up a stone and there's magical things inside of it, just like the poem I'm going to share with you. So this poem will give you an idea of what I'm talking about going inside something. But I want you to notice the title is the object, and then the author explains why he chose a stone, and then he describes the stone from the outside and things that happen to it in normal life. And then in the last stanza, the last section of the poem, he goes inside of it and he shows us what's inside that is magical and strange and maybe something we never thought of before. So I'm going to read it to you. Stone. Go inside a stone. That would be my way. Let someone else become a dove or gnash with a tiger's mouth. I am happy to be a stone. From the outside, the stone is a riddle. No one knows how to answer it. Yet within, it must be cool and quiet. Even though a cow steps on it full weight, even though a child throws it in a river, the stone sinks slow, unperturbed to the river bottom, where the fishes come to knock on it and listen. I have seen sparks fly out when two stones are rubbed, so perhaps it is not dark inside after all. Perhaps there is a moon shining from somewhere, as though behind a hill, just enough light to make out the strange writings, the star charts on the inner walls. So I wonder if you noticed the personification in the second stanza. The poet talks about the fish coming to knock on the rock, and knocking is a very human-like characteristic. So it's not something maybe we would normally associate with fish doing. So if you want to use personification in your poem, you can. Maybe you can even personify the object you choose. And in the first stanza, he talks about why he didn't choose something really exciting like a tiger, because he wants to show us all that even though there's objects or things or creatures that might seem really exciting, there's really exciting things happening inside something as simple as a stone that we don't think about. And so he's going to show us that. And then the final stanza, we get to go inside the stone, and he describes a moon rising inside of the stone. It's like this whole little miniature world. And there's a moon rising, and there's a cave with star charts written on the walls. So even though we don't meet any people or creatures, we know that something is living inside the stone that made the star charts. So it's a mystery, and it's really interesting and cool, I think. So what you're going to do today is try to imitate the structure of the poem if you want to. You don't have to. But if you want to, then you would do the same thing that he does and use whatever object you choose as your title. Then in your first stanza, you explain why you chose this object instead of something else. And then in the second stanza, you explain what this object is. What does it look like? What does it sound like? Use all your 5 senses. What does it feel like when you touch it? What happens to it? If it's a leaf, maybe it gets blown around in the wind, or if it's a cup, it gets picked up or smashed sometimes, or washed in the dishwasher. And then in the final stanza, you get to use your imagination and go wild and take us inside to show us what lives inside. So there's 2 images on this video. One is from The Borrowers, which is about tiny people that live under the floorboards. It's a series of books, and I think there's a movie too. Maybe some of you know it. And the other one is from Horton Hears a Who, and maybe you've seen that movie or read that book. Horton discovers that there's a whole world that he never would have known about in a speck of dust. So he somehow hears that there's life inside this speck of dust, and he goes on an adventure to discover all this whole different world that he didn't know of because it was so tiny and he couldn't notice it because he just thought it was a speck of dust. So this poem that you're going to write today is basically like that. You're going to show us some magical world or some cool new thing that we didn't know because we just thought we were looking at a pine needle. And really, maybe there's so much more to the pine needle than we think. So have fun, use your senses, and I look forward to reading them.